Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off our sneakers, setting aside the doom-scrolling and time-traveling back to the steamy jungles of ancient Mesoamerica. Welcome to the world of the Maya. But don't worry, we're not here to decode hieroglyphs or climb pyramids tonight. We're here for dinner. Yes, dinner. The one thing that matters most when you're tired, sunburned, and covered in jungle sweat. If you think dinner back then was just a cornthok and maybe a sprinkle of chili, well, let's just say, you probably wouldn't survive your first day. Spoiler alert, their love for corn. It was borderline religious. Actually, scratch that, it was religious start, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment and tell me what city you're in, and what time it is right now. I always love seeing who's joining this little midnight expedition across time. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes, and you're standing in mud, not the kind you squish through on a rainy walk in the park. This stuff clings like it's trying to pull you down for a hug. All around you, it's green, not soft lawn green, but jungle green. Wet, breathing, buzzing green. In your hands, a bundle of corn, but not the fat, sweet yellow cobs you're used to from summer BBQs. No, this is teosinte, wild maize. It's skinny, tough, and has about as much charm as a pine cone. Honestly, it looks like something you'd sweep off a hiking trail. But to the ancient Maya, this scrappy little grass is divine. Literally. According to their mythology, you right now were made of corn. Not clay, not dust, corn. The gods apparently tried mud and wood first, but neither batch had good behavior. So third time's the charm. They crushed up corn, added water, shaped little people from massa, and voila, humans. Congratulations. You're a walking tamale. The point is, corn wasn't just food, it was identity, it was life, it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner with a side of cosmic symbolism. And the Maya, they didn't just boil corn and call it a day. No, they nicked it. That means soaking it in an alkaline solution basically. Cooking it with wood, ash, or lime. Sounds gross, it's actually brilliant. It makes the corn more nutritious, easier to grind, and gives you the base for masa, the dough behind tortillas, tamales, and more. Here's where you realize something important. Dinner in a Maya home isn't just about eating. It's a ritual, a science, a legacy passed down through calloused hands and smoky kitchens. The smell of roasting masa wafts through the air like an offering to the ancestors. You're not just cooking, you're communing. Now, the kitchen isn't some separate remets, more like a fire circle in the center of everything. You see a woman squatting near the flames, flipping thick tortillas on a clay griddle comal. Her fingers move so fast they're a blur. You try to help. You burn yourself twice. She laughs softly, not unkindly. Welcome to the beginner's circle. There's a stone slab nearby the meditate. It's like a mini workout station. You watch someone grind soaked corn with a heavy stone roller, over and over. Your arms ache just from watching. It takes hours to prep this dough, and that's just the start. Now for the twist. The Maya weren't just making tortillas. They turned corn into drinks, cakes, porridges, and ceremonial dishes so complex, even modern chefs raise their eyebrows. You might not recognize anything on the dinner table, but you will taste history in every bite. But here's the thing, historians still argue about. Did the average Maya commoner eat like this every day? Or was this level of corn-based luxury reserved for the nobility and special occasions? The truth is still buried somewhere under layers of soil and soot. What we do know is that corn was the star of the show, whether you were a farmer in the lowlands or a priest in the highlands. And as the jungle night settles in and fireflies blink in lazy patterns, you take your first bite of hot fresh tortilla. It's simple, earthy, maybe a little bland to your modern taste buds, but there's a warmth in it, a kind of quiet pride. You chew slowly, listening to the sounds of the night and the rhythm of stories being cooked, not told. The first time you see a Maya hot chocolate, you hesitate. It's dark, almost black. No whipped cream, no foam art, no tiny marshmallows floating on top, promising comfort and childhood nostalgia. Instead, it's thick, almost gritty, and steaming, in a pottery cup that looks like it's been through a few dozen ceremonies. You bring it to your lips, expecting something cozy. Wrong. It punches you. First the bitterness, then the spice. There's chili in there, maybe some maize flour, maybe flowers, definitely no sugar. Your tongue doesn't know whether to celebrate or file a complaint. Welcome to cocoa, what we now call cocoa, the soul of ancient Maya cuisine and ceremony. Long before Belgium dipped strawberries in it, Long before Instagram cafes turned it into pastel-colored art, the Maya were grinding cacao beans, mixing them with spices, and calling it holy. You sit on a woven mat, watching a woman pour the mixture from one vessel to another from a surprising height, catching it in a thin bubbling stream. It's not just for show, it aerates the drink, gives it froth. The Maya loved froth. Some depictions even show gods handing each other foamy cups of cacao like divine baristas, and yes, cacao was sacred. So sacred, in fact, that beans were used as currency. A single cacao bean could buy you a tamale. 100 might get you a decent turkey. You try not to laugh. Imagine walking into a supermarket and paying for eggs with a handful of Hershey's Kisses. But this was serious economic infrastructure. There were counterfeit beans. People hollowed out real ones and stuffed them with dirt. You realize you're holding history's first known chocolate scam. As you sip your drink carefully, now you hear soft music in the background. Wooden flutes, turtle shell drums. It's not a party, it's a ritual. Cacao was offered to gods, used in royal weddings, and even included in burial ceremonies. If someone important died, they'd often be buried with a cacao pot, as if to say, here's your drink for the afterlife, you're gonna need it. There's still debate among scholars about just how far cacao culture reached. Some argue only the elite drank it in ceremonial contexts. Others say it was more widespread, even among commoners. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Like today, some people hoarded the good stuff, while others settled for watery knock-offs. Here single quotes as a fun detail you probably didn't know. Ancient Maya hot chocolate was sometimes fermented, not always, but often enough that some versions of the drink had a faint tang, a little zip, like the ghost of a sourdough starter passed through your mug. It wasn't about getting drunk, it was about depth, layers of flavor, complexity. The Maya understood flavor in a way that's honestly humbling. They weren't just surviving on roots and stews, they were crafting taste, experimenting, innovating. Their chocolate didn't aim to be sweet, it aimed to be powerful, warming, mystical, something that could travel through your mouth and reach your spirit. You set your cup down, the aftertaste is intense, spicy, bitter, vaguely floral. Your lips tingle, you realize you don't miss the sugar, not really. You've tasted something ancient, something alive. And as the fire crackles, a child runs past with a streak of cacao paste on his cheek. A woman laughs and wipes it off. Somewhere nearby, someone grinds more beans on a stone slab, rhythmically, patiently. This isn't just a drink, it's a thread woven through time, language, ritual, and daily life. Suddenly, the idea of hot cocoa will never be the same again. You wake up to the smell of wood smoke and something warm, soft, and oddly comforting. Someone places a small bundle in your hands. It's wrapped in a banana leaf, warm to the touch, and smells like roasted corn with a whisper of lime. You unwrap it carefully, and there it is, your very first Maya tamal. It looks plain, no filling, no sauce, just a tight block of masa. Corn dough steamed into something that smells like breakfast and history had a baby. You take a bite. It's dense, a little grainy, definitely under-seasoned by modern standards, but also kind of magical. This, right here, is what millions of Maya people across generations considered comfort food. And when you ask if there's anything else for breakfast, someone hands you another tamale, same as the first. You're starting to get the picture. Tamales weren't a side dish, they were the dish. Morning, noon, and night. If you had masa, you had dinner. Sometimes there was meat inside, maybe turkey, iguana, or fish, but most days it was just corn, steamed and salted with love. Or, well, steamed. At the beauty of the tamale lies in its simplicity, but making it not so simple. First, the corn had to be nixtamalized, remember that whole alkaline soak from earlier, then ground on a metat into masa, then mixed with water, kneaded by hand, wrapped in leaves, and steamed for hours in an underground oven. It's not so much a meal as it is a slow burn love letter to patience. You notice that everyone's tamale looks slightly different. Some are longer, some are thicker, some wrapped in different leaves depending on what's growing nearby. This wasn't standardized fast food, it was deeply regional, wildly personal, and probably made by someone's grandmother whose hands have folded 10,000 of them. What's fascinating is that tamales weren't just food, they were also cosmic metaphors. Ancient texts refer to humans as people of tamales just as much as people of corn. Think about that. You're not just eating a snack, you're eating a symbol of your own creation myth. Some tamales were made specially for festivals, shaped like animals or ancestors. Others were offered to the gods, left at altars, buried in ritual pits, or thrown into cenotes as edible prayers. Some versions were black from ashes, some red from anoto, some sweetened with honey or mixed with cacao paste. Honestly, it's like a culinary universe stuffed inside a corn cocoon. But here's where things get interesting. Archaeologists are still arguing over how often people actually ate tamales versus tortillas or atole, a corn drink. Some say tamales were mostly festival food. Others argue they were more common in households than we think. The evidence is steamy, but inconclusive. Either way, there's something deeply grounding about holding one in your hand. It's warm, humble, and a little sticky. Not flashy, not dramatic, but undeniably full of life. You take another bite and try to slow down, like everyone around you is doing. Meals here aren't rushed. You chew, you breathe, you listen. A woman across the fire looks up at you and gestures more. You nod. She unwraps another one. This time it's got pumpkin seeds inside, crushed and roasted. A pop of flavor. A surprise. You smile, because it feels like she just let you in on a secret. This isn't just food. This is how you're folded into the world. You're sitting by the fire, nursing your second or maybe third tamale of the day, when something small and crunchy is handed to you on a leaf. It's shiny, it moves slightly, you blink. Is this alive? A nearby child giggles and pops one straight into their mouth like it's popcorn. You stare down at your snack, a plump beetle with legs curled under, roasted to a golden crisp. Welcome to the world of Maya insect cuisine where dinner sometimes comes with a shell. It might sound strange at first, but for the ancient Maya, bugs weren't backup food for emergencies. They were delicacies. Practical, protein-packed, sometimes even ceremonial. You pick up the beetle with 2 fingers, gingerly, politely, and crunch down. Not bad. Actually. Pretty good. It's nutty, smoky, maybe a little buttery. Some kinds are flavored with chili and salt, others roasted plain in clay pans over low fires. The beetle you just ate. It's probably a chicatana ant or a jungle beetle larva, both of which have been part of Maya diets for centuries. They're seasonal, appearing after rains or during specific months. People wait for them like modern folks wait for mango season. And it wasn't just beetles. The Maya also ate grasshoppers, worms, cicadas, wasps, and even bee larvae. The jungle is full of edible surprises, many of them skittering, and the Maya turned them into crunchy treats or rich additions to stews. There's a woman nearby mashing up something in a stone bowl. You lean in. It's roasted ant paste, dark, oily, and intensely aromatic. She's mixing it with ground seeds and a little lime juice to make a kind of salsa. You dip a tortilla in, cautiously, and woot's got a tense, a spice, and a hit of something earthy you can't quite describe. You'd never guess it came from an insect. Here's where it gets weird in a cool way. Some insects were used in medicine too. There are records of crushed bugs applied to wounds, used as fever reducers, or even ingested as spiritual purifiers. That's right, bug-based wellness rituals. Move over. Collagen powder. Of course, scholars still argue about the role of insects in the average Maya diet. Were they everyday staples, or regional specialties? Were they survival food for the poor, or high-protein snacks traded among elites? The truth is slippery, like literally slippery if you're trying to pick up a roasted grub with sweaty fingers, but most agree that bugs were far more integrated into food culture than people once assumed. You're starting to get it now. The Maya didn't separate weird from normal when it came to food. If it was nutritious, available, and could be made delicious, it went on the fire. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. You watch a boy chase a large beetle around a stump, his mother laughing behind him, ready to toss it into the cookpot. You glance down at the last crispy insect on your leaf, now oddly familiar. You pop it into your mouth without hesitation. Dinner's come a long way since frozen pizza. You hear a rustle in the underbrush, something big, something snorting. Your first instinct is to climb a tree, but the Maya around you just smile knowingly. Dinner, someone says. Out from the jungle ambles a creature that looks like it was assembled from spare parts, long snout, short legs, a thick, tough hide, and a walk that says, "Yeah, I own this forest." It's not a pig, not quite. It's a peccary, also known as a jungle pig, but don't let the nickname fool you. This beast has attitude. And if you thought that was the only surprise, wait until you meet the tapir. Yes, the tapir, a half-ton herbivore with the face of an elephant's baby cousin and the behind of a small cow. The Maya didn't just eat it, respected it. Some even called it a forest spirit. But, spirit or not, if you caught one, you celebrated, with fire, and spice, and probably a side of tortillas. Here's the thing, the Maya didn't have cows. No sheep, no goats, no chicken nuggets. So their meat department came straight from the jungle: wild turkeys, deer, armadillos, and these oddly majestic pig-like creatures, and hunting them, that wasn't a hobby. It was a skill passed down through generations, involving traps, tracking, and sometimes a bit of prayer. Tonight, you're in luck. Someone has caught a tapir. It's being prepared in a pit, a wide hole dug in the earth, lined with hot stones and banana leaves, slowly cooking meat with smoky tenderness. The air smells of roasted herbs, corn dough, and something rich, primal. You peek inside the pit as it's opened. The meat is falling apart, dark and glistening, seasoned with crushed annatto seeds, chili, and wild herbs you can't name. A woman tears off a piece with her fingers, wraps it in a fresh tortilla, and hands it to you. You take a bite. Surprising, gamey, yes, but deeply flavorful, like pork crossed with brisket, then dipped in jungle magic. The texture is tender. The spices hit slow and warm. You glance around, people are already reaching for seconds. What's fascinating is that, in Maya art, these animals aren't just meat, they're symbols. Peccaries appear in myths, tapirs in ceremonial carvings. Some gods even ride them. So, yes, you might be eating a creature that once starred in a holy story. Welcome to the blurred lines between mythology and menu. Here's a weird academic twist. Some researchers think the Maya might have semi-domesticated certain animals. Not like pets, but more like forest, friends with benefits. There's evidence of animals being raised near settlements, not penned in, but not fully wild either. Sort of a free-range mutual agreement. Historians still argue about it, of course. Some say it's over-interpreting the bones. Others think it shows an early form of animal management way ahead of its time. Either way, you're beginning to realize something. Nothing the Maya ate was thoughtless. Every meal came with a story, a memory, or a spirit. Even this tapir might have been thanked before the first bite was taken. As you finish your jungle taco, someone nearby taps a drum, soft and steady. The flames crackle. Children sneak extra meat behind their parents' backs. You lean back, full in the way that feels ancient, not just in your stomach, but in your bones. And just for a second, you think, maybe that tapir doesn't mind too much. Maybe he knew he'd be part of something bigger. You wake up to bees. Not the annoying kind buzzing near your face, but a gentle hum in the distance, like the jungle itself is softly vibrating. You follow the sound, weaving through vines and warm sunlight, until you spot them. Tiny, black stingless bees flitting in and out of a hollow log. No aggressive buzzing, no frantic swarms, just peaceful little workers tending to something sacred. You've found a Maya beehive, and what they're making isn't just honey, it's liquid gold. The Maya didn't mess with your average bee. They raised a species called Melipona beechi, a stingless tropical bee so chill you could stick your hand near its hive and not get stung. Not that you'd want to. These bees were holy, protected by ritual and story. Killing one was basically asking for divine trouble. Someone nearby carefully opens a hive. Inside, a maze of waxy egg-shaped pods filled with bright, golden nectar. It's not clear like supermarket honey. It's darker, sometimes sour, sometimes herbal. You get to try a spoonful. Whoa. It tastes like honey that went on a spiritual retreat and came back deeper. Complex, floral, tangy, even a little funky. Not just sweet, interesting. It lingers on your tongue like a secret, and the Maya didn't just eat it. They used it in medicine, mixing it with herbs for wounds and infections. They used it in rituals, offering it to gods, especially the bee god Omis and Capri, saying that 3 times fast. Honey was part of trade, part of ceremony, part of everyday life. If corn was the body, honey was the breath. You're handed a little desserta tamale sweetened with honey and ground cacao. No sugar, no frosting, just pure jungle dessert engineering. It's sticky and soft, with a deep earthy sweetness that makes your whole mouth pause to appreciate it. There's a small ceremony starting nearby. People gather with cups of honey, water, lighting incense. Someone chants softly. It's the usual chok, a traditional bee ceremony still practiced today. In parts of the Yucatan, you watch as the hive is blessed, the bees thanked, and a few drops of honey offered back to the forest. This isn't just about food. It's reciprocity, a relationship between people, bees, and gods, a cycle of sweetness and respect. And here's a juicy academic tidbit. Scholars still debate how widespread Melipona bee domestication really was. Some argue it was limited to religious elites. Others say beekeeping was common across Maya households. The only consensus: the Maya loved their bees long before European honeybees showed up with their stingers and aggressive vibes. You realize something as you lick the last of the honey from your fingers. You've never tasted anything quite like this. Not just the flavor, but the context. You're eating something ancient, something the forest helped make, drop by drop, in quiet collaboration with people who listened more than they took. Back in the village, children chase each other around a hollow log hive. A woman ties up small gourds filled with honey for market, and above it all, the bees hum not loudly, not urgently, but rhythmically, like a song older than memory. You take a deep breath, still tasting the honey on your tongue. The jungle feels a little sweeter, of course. Some researchers argue over how central chili was to daily meals versus ceremonial dishes, but given how often it shows up in texts, tools, and even art, it's safe to say, chili was never just background heat, it was character development. A woman offers you a roasted chili, stuffed with squash seeds and beans. You bite in bravely. It's smoky, rich, and dangerously addictive. Around you, no one is sweating, no one is reaching for water. You realize, they've been training since birth, and maybe now, so are you. As the sun dips below the treetops, casting long shadows over the clay cook fires, someone laughs and fans the smoke with a palm frond. You breathe it in, not just heat but heritage, and just like that, your taste buds and your understanding are forever changed. By now, you've figured out that Maya food doesn't whisper, it sings. It sings in spice, in smoke, in centuries of careful pairing. But if there's one ingredient that belts like an operatic fire goddess, it's the chili pepper. Your first taste is eye-opening, not spicy like hot sauce from the fridge. This is depth that crawls into your sinuses and politely kicks over a chair. Your lips tingle, your brain wakes up, your soul sweats a little. Welcome to the power of chili, the ancient Maya's not-so-secret obsession. It wasn't just a seasoning, it was medicine, punishment, protection, and yes, sometimes even a parenting tool. Historical fact, some Maya parents literally waved chili smoke under a misbehaving kid's nose. You suddenly feel seen. But let's start with the food. Maya chili wasn't a one-flavor wonder. They had varieties ranging from fruity and floral to smoky and volcanic. Chilies were roasted, dried, ground, smoked, stuffed, or turned into thick sauces that coated everything from turkey to tamales. Ever heard of cayute? That's a paste made from smoked chili and herbs, like the ancestor of modern hot sauces, only with a better origin story. You're handed a small clay bowl of soup flavored with roasted chili, bits of squash, and wild greens. The first spoonful doesn't seem that spicy, but then, oh, it creeps in, slowly, lovingly, like the soup just remembered. It was a fire hazard. And here's the cool part, the Maya didn't just eat chili, they respected it. In some rituals, chili smoke was used to cleanse spaces or communicate with spirits. In others, it was an offering. Historians still debate the deeper meanings. Some say chili represented breath, or even pain as purification. Others point out that it could have been a deterrent, spiritual or otherwise. You also notice chili being used in medicine. Someone rubs a chili paste on their joints. Another mixes it with honey for a sore throat. A child with a mild cough is offered a tiny lick of chili salt. Is it effective? Honestly, maybe. Science backs some of this up. Capsaicin has antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, but mostly it just makes you remember what you ate. And get this, there's archaeological evidence of chili use dating back thousands of years, even before the rise of major Maya cities. It's been found in cooking pots, on grinding stones, and even in ceremonial vessels. Some experts believe chili was part of funerary feasts, possibly to wake the dead or honor their fiery legacy. A spicy send-off, if you will. Of course. Some researchers argue over how central chili was to daily meals versus ceremonial dishes. But given how often it shows up in texts, tools, and even art, it's safe to say, chili was never just background heat, it was character development. A woman offers you a roasted chili, stuffed with squash seeds and beans. You bite in bravely. It's smoky, rich, and dangerously addictive. Around you, no one is sweating, no one is reaching for water. You realize they've been training since birth, and maybe now, so are you. As the sun dips below the treetops, casting long shadows over the clay cook fires, someone laughs and fans the smoke with a palm frond. You breathe it in, not just heat, but heritage. And just like that, your taste buds and your understanding are forever changed. Of course, some researchers argue over how central chili was to daily meals versus ceremonial dishes, but given how often it shows up in texts, tools, and even art, it's safe to say, chili was never just background heat. It was character development. A woman offers you a roasted chili, stuffed with squash seeds and beans. You bite in bravely. It's smoky, rich, and dangerously addictive. Around you, no one is sweating, no one is reaching for water. You realize they've been training since birth, and maybe now, so are you. As the sun dips below the treetops, casting long shadows over the clay cookfires, someone laughs and fans the smoke with a palm frond. You breathe it in, not just heat but heritage. And just like that, your taste buds and your understanding are forever changed. It's been a long day of walking, tasting, learning, sweating, and politely asking, is this spicy? Before everything you eat. Now you're thirsty, really thirsty. So you look around half hoping for a coconut, maybe a waterfall, or dare. We dream a clay cup of something sweet and icy. Nope. You, single quotes, rehanded a gourd. Inside a thick beige liquid that smells like corn and socks. You take a sip and immediately realize you are not in Starbucks anymore. Welcome to the Maya beverage lineup, where water is often not just water, and drinks are a meal, a ceremony, and a chemical experiment all in one. This one's called atole, a warm or room temperature drink made from ground nixtamalized corn, sometimes flavored with chili, cacao, honey, or vanilla. The version you're sipping, slightly fermented, slightly sour, definitely an acquired taste, but give it a second. As it settles on your tongue, you realize there's a comfort to it. It's filling, nourishing, and kind of like sipping a hug. From an ancient grandmother who doesn't care about your sugar cravings, corn-based drinks were everywhere in Maya daily life. There was pozol made from fermented corn, dough, and water, perfect for long jungle treks. There was bulch, a kind of honeyed tree bark mead, and of course there was keko, the ceremonial chocolate drink you already met back in section 2. Each drink had its moment, its purpose, its audience. And yes, sometimes they just drank good old plain water, especially from some notes, natural limestone sinkholes, considered sacred gateways to the underworld. You might be able to drink from one, but only if you ask nicely. Or, no, don't offend any gods first. The Maya didn't just consume drinks, they engineered them. Some were fermented, others spiced. Many involved ash, bark, or crushed flowers. You watch a woman stir a giant gourd of something dark red made from hibiscus petals and roasted chili. It smells tart and floral. You take a sip, tangy, cooling, surprisingly refreshing. There's even a cold corn drink being served in the afternoon. Heat chia atolia with soaked chia seeds floating like tiny alien eggs. Texture-wise suspicious, but flavor-wise earthy, smooth, and satisfying. Here's where the scholars come in again, waving their papers and ceramic shards. There's still debate over how fermented these drinks really were. Were they mildly tangy, or properly alcoholic? Some say yes, but only during festivals. Others believe low-level fermentation was common in daily life. Either way, we're not talking frat party here. We're talking sacred sips, subtle buzz, and slow energy for hard work. You're offered a new drink, a kind of maize chili mashup, warm and smoky, with a bit of honey and foam stirred in with a wooden whisk. It's like drinking a campfire made by a pastry chef. Complex, strange, wonderful, and that's kind of the point. Maya beverages weren't background, were culture in a cup, designed to nourish, awaken, celebrate, and connect. They filled stomachs, blessed ceremonies, sealed marriages, and even comforted the dying. You take another sip of your atole and look around. No one's rushing. People drink slowly, chatting, laughing, resting. The pace is different here. Slower, more deliberate, like the drink itself, and you realize, it's not just thirst that's being quenched, it's connection. The sun is dipping low and the smoky haze of roasting fires thickens in the air. Something's happening. You hear music, drums, flutes, rattles and voices humming in sync. Everyone's dressed a little more elaborately. Children are scrubbed. Clean women wear embroidered hooples with colors as loud as parrots. You glance around and realize, this isn't just dinner, it's a feast. But not a feast like you're used to. No long buffet tables, no cheesy party playlist. This one feels sacred. Every movement, chopping, stirring, grinding is slow and purposeful. Food here isn't just to be eaten, it's to be understood. Tonight's spread includes turkey, tamales, soaked in chili red sauce, roasted squash filled with spiced beans, and a thick stew bubbling over a fire, full of game meat and wild herbs. But it's not just the menu that matters, that's the timing. You've stumbled into a ritual meal, part of the calendar ceremony cycle that linked agriculture, astronomy, and divinity into one long, tasty timeline. The Maya didn't just throw parties, they aligned them with the stars. Literally, this might be the end of a Katona 20-year period in their calendar, or maybe a harvest festival. Could also be a tribute to a specific deity. No one tells you outright, but you don't need to ask. The energy says enough. This is food meant for both people and gods. A man near the fire tosses pinches of macado into the flames, murmuring words you don't understand, an offering. Others place bowls of food on small stone altars, steam rising like prayers. Before anyone eats, there's silence. Heads bow, a soft chant. It feels like saying grace, only older, deeper, hungrier. Then everyone eats, and you do, too. You're handed a folded banana leaf bundle. Inside is pib, a dish baked in an underground oven called a pibble meat, marinated in ochiote and citrus, slow cooked with roots and herbs until it's falling apart. It's like barbecue, but with a cosmic side of reverence. Everything is delicious, but it's the structure that fascinates you. There's an order to who eats first, to what dishes go where. Certain foods go to elders, some to children, others are set aside for those who've passed. One bowl, untouched, is placed near the fire for the ancestors, maybe, or the gods. And you notice, food isn't the main event, it's the medium. The real point is what it connects sky and soil, people and spirits, life and death. Historians are still unraveling just how coded Maya feasts were. Some believe meals like these functioned like live calendars, where each dish, each ritual, marked time and cosmology. Others argue they were practical first, spiritual second. But everyone agrees, this wasn't just throw some stuff on the grill and eat. This was theology, ceremony, and dinner rolled into one. You sip a thick chocolate drink laced with chili and vanilla. Nearby, someone offers a toast, more of a chant, really. The cup is passed around, each person sipping, nodding. No one gulps. This is a shared breath. Later, people begin to dance, not wildly, but in spirals, in circles, barefoot on packed earth. You watch, full but not sluggish. The food didn't just feed your body, it tuned it, like tightening strings on a drum dub. As night wraps its arms around the village, you lean back, watching embers float into the stars. A child presses a tamale into your hand before scampering off. It's still warm. You're not sure if it's meant to be eaten now or saved for a spirit later. At some point in the night after your third ceremonial tamale and second chili-laced cocoa, you're beckoned into the jungle. Not alone, thankfully. A small group walks ahead, carrying bundles wrapped in leaves, clay pots, and long sticks. You follow, still chewing something vaguely squash-flavored. You single quotes about to meet the underground kitchen. The Maya call it a pibba type of earth oven. It's not just a hole in the ground, it's an architectural act of flavor. And tonight, you're getting the VIP pitrost experience. The site is already prepared. A shallow pit lined with hot stones, smoldering for hours. Banana leaves are spread out like green satin. Onto them go chunks of marinated meat, vegetables, and dough bundles. Everything's wrapped, layered, buried, and finally, covered with dirt. Like a sleepy volcano about to slow cook your dinner, kneel down to help, patting the earth over the mound. Someone hands you a gourd of a clay. You sip and watch the steam rise gently from cracks in the soil. No timers, no thermometers, just time, heat, and trust in ancestral instincts. You glance at the elders nearby. They sit with arms crossed, eyes half closed. This isn't just cooking, it's remembering. Every pib is a connection to generations past, to stories told by firelight, to recipes that lived longer than King's Dot. And here's where things get unexpectedly technical. The Maya had low temperature cooking figured out centuries before machines were a thing. They knew that burying meat with stones and steam preserved moisture, broke down fibers, and created flavors so tender your molars might weep with joy. There's even archaeological evidence of ancient pibs across Mesoamerica, some with ash layers still intact. Researchers have found carbonized food remains, animal bones, and plant residues in these underground ovens. The debate, as always, is about scale. Were pibs a daily affair or only for special events? The answer might be yes. It depends where and when and who's doing the digging. Hours pass. Stars shift. You lie back and listen to the jungle buzz as your dinner simmers beneath your feet. When it's finally time to open the pib, there's a collective breath like unwrapping a gift. The entire village helped wrap. The dirt is brushed away. Leaves are peeled back. Steam rises like incense, and the smell, rich, smoky, layered meat falling off the bone. Squash infused with citrus and chili. Tamales swollen with earthy depth. The kind of aroma that makes your ancestors sit up a little in their graves and say, okay, that smells right. You're handed a portion wrapped in charred leaf. It's still too hot to touch, but you do anyway. You tear off a piece, blow on it and take a bite. Instant silence. The meat may be turkey. Maybe peccary is soft, juicy, threaded with spice and smoke. You taste the hours, the waiting, the collective memory. Nearby, a dog watches you with world-weary eyes. He's been here before. He knows this is the good stuff. People begin eating in a circle, slowly, gratefully. There's no rush. The forest eats with you. The stars blink in approval. And as you lick roasted masa from your fingers, you realize this isn't just about good cooking. It's about letting time cook with you. You're lounging near a cooking fire, sweaty, full, blissfully dazed when a boy plunks something on a woven mat in front of you. It's a shell, big, spiral-shaped, with a faint ocean scent. But here's the weird part. You're in the middle of the jungle. How did this get here? You ask, more to yourself than anyone else. A woman hears you, grins, and replies, trade. And just like that, you're swept into another layer of Maya cuisine. The luxuries that traveled miles, across mountains and forests, all to end up on one royal platter. The Maya weren't isolated forest dwellers living off whatever grew within arm's reach. They were brilliant traders, with vast networks connecting the highlands, lowlands, coasts, and everything in between. And when it came to dinner, they had tastes, expensive ones. You're handed a bite-sized piece of dried fish, chewy and salty, wrapped in a bit of hoja santa leaf. You chew thoughtfully. It's good, bold and earthy. Someone casually mentions it came from the coast. You do a mental map check. That's days away, and yet here it is. On your jungle dinner plate. Maya trade routes brought seafood to inland cities, obsidian to farming villages, and salt to just about everyone. Shellfish, dried shrimp, sea snails, even chunks of coral were considered delicacies. For elites, a banquet wasn't complete without a little something that smelled like the ocean. And it wasn't just about the flavor. Shells and fish bones have been found in elite tombs, likely symbolizing status, wealth, or divine favor. Eating seafood hundreds of kilometers from the coast. That wasn't dinner. That was a flex. You watch as a small bowl of sea snail ceviche is passed around. It's acidic, spiced with chili, topped with toasted squash seeds. Not authentic to modern ceviche maybe, but it feels timeless. You take a bite and, yeah, that's worth the trade journey. But here comes the historian's debate. Hot and fresh. How common was seafood in inland Maya life? Some scholars argue it was mostly for royalty and festivals. Others think trade was robust enough that even commoners got a taste once in a while, especially during seasonal feasts. Archaeological evidence is spotty, but suggestive. The one thing everyone agrees on: these foods moved, and their presence speaks volumes. You're beginning to realize that every Maya meal was geography in motion. Chili from the highlands, cacao from the lowlands, salt from the flats, fish from the coasts. The entire landscape was part of the pantry. There's also the matter of preservation. Drying, smoking, salting, these weren't just survival tricks. They were culinary technologies. That chewy fish you ate earlier, probably salted and sun-dried days ago, then bundled in a woven pack and carried through the jungle like a gift from Poseidon. A boy nearby digs into a small roasted crab. Another bites into a tamale stuffed with fish flakes and sweet herbs. You're watching coastal life live out a second act here in the heart of the forest. That is, the evening deepens and the jungle chirps louder. Someone plays a seashell trumpet. The sound is low and strange, like the sea remembered out loud. You lean back, full and thoughtful, the taste of ocean still on your lips. The Maya didn't just eat the land, they ate the map. The next morning, you wake up to a smell that makes your face do something involuntary. It's sour, sharp, a little musty, like someone left wet corn in a shoebox. Breakfast, someone announces cheerfully. You hesitate. Surely that smell isn't. Oh, it is. You're handed a gourd with a thick, lukewarm drink inside. You brace yourself, take a sip, and it's weird, but it grows on you. Like kombucha's distant, ancient cousin who never made it to Brooklyn, meet pozol, the Maya's fermented corn drink / portable meal. And your new jungle travel buddy, made from nixtamalized corn dough masa mixed with water, and left to gently ferment. Pozol wasn't just a drink, it was fuel. People packed a hunk of the dough for the road, adding water from streams along the way. No thermos needed, no coffee run, just break off a piece, stir, sip, and carry on. It was basically the ancient Mesoamerican energy drink, minus the branding. This version you're drinking is white pozol, simple and unsweetened, which explains the funk. But there are dozens of variations. Some are flavored with cacao, chili, or even crushed flowers. Some are more like porridge, others more like broth. All of them are a little strange. All of them very Maya. As you sip, you notice other fermented foods being set out. There's pickled squash, sliced thin and soaking in a briny herbal bath. There's chili fermented beans, tangy and spicy, meant to be spread on tortillas like ancient salsa. A jar of fermented fruit mash bubbles softly nearby. You poke at it, and it hisses back. Charming. And here's where the culinary nerds get excited. The Maya didn't ferment things just to keep them from going bad. They believed fermentation had spiritual and bodily benefits. Some fermented items were used in ritual healing, others in ceremonial meals. There are even records of fermented tamales used in ancestor offerings, sour bundles meant to feed the dead with flavor they'd remember. Modern historians are still piecing together exactly how widespread fermentation was in Maya cuisine. The tropical climate wasn't ideal for long-term storage, but fermentation created flavor, complexity, and shelf life. It's possible many Maya households had their own techniques, little jars of this. Bundles of that developed over generations. A woman shows you her fermentation, a shallow hole with sealed clay jars. She opens one and dips out a thick, reddish paste made of chili and squash seeds. It smells funky and bright and oddly good. She smears a bit on your tortilla and gestures for you to eat. You do. Your mouth goes on a 5-second emotional journey, ending with, "Okay, yeah, I'd totally eat that again." You're starting to understand that in Maya food culture, time itself was an ingredient. Things were soaked, buried, smoked, fermented, because they had to be, but because it made them better, deeper, more alive. And it's not just about flavor. Maya people believed spoilage and transformation were part of the universe's natural rhythm. Just as seeds rot to grow plants, food could age into something more powerful. Fermentation wasn't decay, it was becoming. You finished the last of your pozol, it's warm now, and even funkier, but you don't mind. Your palate has adjusted, your stomach is steady, and your respect, officially fermented. A kid walks by with a clay bowl of pickled papaya and hands you a slice. It's tart, sweet, almost effervescent. You grin. The Maya didn't just preserve food, they transformed it into something that tastes like memory, science, and a little bit of magic. It's well past sunset now. The village is quiet in that humming way, where the fire's low, the kids are asleep, and only the serious talkers or drinkers are still gathered near the coals. Someone hands you a gourd. You assume it's more atole. You assume wrong. The moment it touches your lips, you taste something wild, not sweet, not spicy. It's earthy, a little sharp, slightly fizzy, and, before you even ask, someone leans over and says, with a grin, "That's for talking to the dead." Excuse me, you've just taken a sip of bulch, the Maya's own ritual alcohol, made by soaking the bark of the bulch tree in water and mixing it with honey to encourage natural fermentation. It was never about the buzz, it was about the connection between people, between spirits, between the here and the not here. And yes, it can get you a little tipsy. Bulch was used in ceremonies, festivals, and rites of passage. Priests drank it before rituals. Newlyweds shared it during marriage ceremonies. Some accounts say it was even hallucinogenic in certain preparations, especially when mixed with other bark infusions or plant extracts. Whether it was a gentle wine or a full-on vision quest, that's still up for debate. Historians can't agree. Some think it was mildly fermented. Others insist certain versions packed a bigger punch. What they all agree on, it mattered deeply. You're offered another drink, this one darker, heavier, made from fermented corn and fruit. It's slightly warm, sour, and strangely satisfying. You're told it's called qi, a lesser-known fermented drink likely enjoyed by regular folks during special feasts. It's not pretty, but it's powerful. One of those acquired taste drinks you start to crave after your third try. Someone clinks a gourd against yours. No glass, no toast, just a silent cheers that needs no translation. You clink back. As the drinks flow, the stories come. A man recounts a dream where he saw his grandfather sitting by the fire with a bowl of bulch. A woman swears the gods prefer a bitter qi over a sweet one. Another claims she once poured cacao into her bulch and spoke in 3 voices at once. You start to realize, these drinks aren't background noise, they're part of the cosmic dialogue. They're how people remember, how they listen, how they get brave enough to whisper to things they can't see. And there's science here, too. The fermentation process used by the Maya, natural yeast, careful timing, and a lot of botanical intuition, no thermometers, no brewer's kits. Just centuries of lived, tasted, and sometimes slightly slurred experience. There's even evidence some of these drinks were ritually restricted, reserved for elders, priests, or specific calendar days. That cup you're holding might have been illegal in ancient times unless you were wearing the right feathers. It adds a little thrill to every sip. You lean back, the stars above swirling a little more than usual. A soft laughter spreads through the circle, a low flute plays. Someone passes a new gourd filled with something cloudy and green. You take it without question, because now, you get it. To the Maya, drink was never just about refreshment, it was a bridge between worlds, between people, between you, and the you haven't met yet. You close your eyes, warm and gently spinning, the jungle humming around you like a lullaby made of bark, honey, memory, and time. You wake up curled beside a fire that's little more than embers now, your gourd cup tipped over, still sticky with the last of the bulge. A rooster calls somewhere in the distance, but it's not your alarm clock, it's just part of the day. You stretch, bones creaking, and notice someone already grinding corn by the fire. She's been up since before the sun. You shuffle closer and sit quietly, watching. She doesn't look at you right away, she's focused, rocking a stone roller across the matad like she's done it 1,000 times, because she has. You're watching the real head chef of the Maya world, a woman in her kitchen, barefoot, back straight, arms strong, and you're not just watching a cook, you're watching a priestess in action. In Maya culture, the kitchen wasn't the sidelines, it was a sacred space. The hearth wasn't just where food was made, it was where life began, where spirits gathered, where offerings were prepared, and where generations of women held the flame, literally and spiritually. The word for kitchen, in many Maya languages, ties closely to home, hearth, or even womb. That says everything. She finally looks at you, grins, and hands you a warm tortilla so fresh it sighs in your hands. You bite in, and you swear it's better than anything you've eaten so far, not because it's flashier, but because it's hers. Your tasting skill, muscle memory, generational knowledge needed into dough. As she works, kids wander in to help. One starts shaping masa into tiny rounds. Another tends the fire. There's no shouting, no ticking clock, just rhythm. You realize it's like a quiet, daily ritual, unfolding every morning without fuss but with deep intention. You hear women nearby chatting softly, some preparing food for market, others mixing herbs for medicine, and one kneeling to make a small offering of corn and salt near the fire. You watch her murmur something, maybe a blessing, maybe a reminder, and place the food on a little ceramic plate. It's not dramatic, it's not for show, it's just part of the morning. And here's a piece historians love to chew on. While Maya men are often spotlighted in temples, battles, and politics, many scholars now argue it was women who kept culture alive, through food, through medicine, through the day-to-day rituals that wove cosmology into breakfast arts. In fact, some researchers believe the hearth was considered a portola connection to ancestors, underworld spirits, and deities. Every time a tortilla was flipped, something unseen was honored. Every pot stirred. A prayer, even if no one called it that out loud. It makes sense when you realize most offerings to gods involved food, and who made that food? Not the priests on the pyramid steps, the women in the kitchen. The real altar was here, where masa meets heat. You help shape a few tortillas, clumsily. Everyone laughs as yours turn out lumpy and sad, but no one judges. You're learning. That's part of the ritual too. Later, you notice a young girl sitting beside her grandmother, carefully copying how she grinds herbs, folds tamales, and adds just the right amount of ash to the dough. It's not school, it's inheritance. You take another bite of your tortilla, eyes stinging slightly from the smoke. You don't mind, you're tasting something quiet and sacred, pressed between fingers, passed down like fire from one generation to the next. It's your last evening in the Maya village, and something feels different. The air is still warm, but there's a softness to it. The fire crackles, a little gentler. Dinner is simpler tonight, fresh tortillas, a bowl of black beans, a bit of roasted squash. No feast, no ceremony, just everyday food. And somehow, that makes it feel bigger. You take a bite. It tastes like everything you've eaten before, but calmer, familiar, like something your hands might know how to make, even if your brain deal was in single quotes, T. And as you eat, you start to wonder, where did it all go? Because let's be real, when people today talk about Maya food, it's usually in past tense, like it's gone. But is it? Turns out, not really. In parts of Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, Maya food is very much alive in kitchens, in markets, in the scent of fresh tortillas. On street corners, you can still find pib-style cooking in Yucatan homes. Pozol sold in gourds by roadside vendors, and bulch offered during community festivals. You just have to know what you're looking for. You glance at your bowl of beans and squash, the ingredients, the same ones that fed kings, priests, farmers, and children 1,000 years ago. What's changed is the context, the pace, the noise. A woman sits down beside you, eating from the same pot. She doesn't say much, just tears off a bit of tortilla and nods. You're not a guest anymore, you're just part of the table. And yet, outside this moment, the world is very much trying to turn ancient food into modern novelty. You've probably seen the headlines, Maya soup, ancient diets for modern health. But let's be clear, this wasn't a fad. It wasn't built for likes or macros. It was a way of living, shaped by sun, soil, stars, and sweat. Historians still debate what authentic Maya food really means. Is it the pre-Columbian ingredients, the colonial fusions that followed, the quiet variations that survived in family kitchens? The answer is complicated. And honestly, that's the point. Food evolves, people evolve. But that doesn't mean the past disappears. It just gets folded in like masa pressed into a tortilla, layer by layer, story by story. You look around the fire one last time. A toddler is smearing bean paste on her face. An elder is sipping atole, eyes half closed. A dog sneezes dramatically and earns a scrap of squash. Everything is quiet, but full of memory, of presence, of flavor that doesn't need to shout, to be heard. And as the stars begin their slow climb overhead, you take one final bite, slow and grateful. The Maya didn't just feed themselves, they fed time. And now, your bowl is empty, the fire has burned low, and the jungle has settled into its soft night song. Crickets, wind, maybe a distant bird calling out one last note before sleep. You close your eyes. You're full, but not just with food, with stories, with rhythm, with quiet, the kind of full that settles deep in your chest, like a warm stone, grounding you. The flavors of the Maya still linger on your tongue. A little spice, a little smoke, a hint of honey. But what you're really tasting is time. Time, folded into tortillas, whispered through cocoa, tucked into the steam rising from an earth oven no one rushes to open. You breathe in slowly, like the forest is breathing with you. You're not in the past anymore, but you're not fully back either. You're somewhere in between, and maybe that's the best place to end tonight. So let the night wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let your breath slow, your body sink deeper. You've walked through history, listened to the hum of ancient kitchens, and for just a moment maybe you felt what it was like to belong to something much older than yourself. Sleep now, you've earned it.